Hi, everybody. Good evening. You are joining the Board of Finance on Thursday, the 14th of March, 2024. We will have a public hearing on the 2024-2025 fiscal budget proposal beginning at 7 and until our speakers are finished, and then we will close the public hearing and move on to our regularly scheduled meeting. Both will be completely by Zoom this evening. If you would, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just a reminder, the people that you see on the screen are members of the Board of Finance and our alternates, as well as Town Council Finance Committee members. During public comments, we're here to listen to our constituents' concerns about any aspect of the budget proposal. I ask that people limit their comments to about 3 minutes. I'm pretty flexible with that, so long as you're not going on forever. And that you are respectful to board members and you keep it about the topic and not about people. I would also ask that you remember to state your name and your address for the record so that our clerk will be able to keep track of all of our comments. I see that there are already some attendees. Okay, I would ask that when you're called upon that you will be brought in as a panelist and you'll be asked to speak at that time. I will go in order that people appear on my screen. And if there's any other person, we'll make sure that we try to get to everyone. Bill, I think the person at the top of the list will be Michael Barker. Good evening, Mr. Barker.
Good evening. It's so nice to be back with you this evening, Madam Chair.
How are you?
Michael Barker, 26 George Street. I'm quite well. Should I just go ahead?
Yes, please.
Great. So thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to all of you for your service. This is about the most thankless job in Trumbull, and I should know because I did it with some of you for 4 years. So I just want to say on this side of it, we all thank you for all of the hours that you're about to start putting in on this front. Thank you, and that you've already put in, many of you. I stand before you this evening as a pretty well-informed 8-year Trumbull resident and the father of a 3rd grader at Jane Ryan. I want to urge you to take a position on a particular topic and to engage in a lively debate on one other. The position I'd like for you to take is simple. Please do not provide in excess of a 3% increase to the Board of Education. Every year, the first selectman, Board of Finance, Town Council labor over every number in your care. And every year, the Board of Education, and particularly the TPS staff administration, proposes some crazy amount of increase, although somehow always in the same range. You push, you pull, you dance, you remind the superintendent about $750,000 sitting in a discretionary account after 3 years unspent. They send partial information, and then we take a guess and try to do right by the kids. Enough is enough. I say this is the father of a kid in the schools. The TPS administration are not good faith negotiators in the budget process. I am tired of my taxes going up more than they should every year because we can't get a straight answer out of the superintendent. Now, the debate I'd like for you to engage in is around the police department. The TPD budget has gone up every year since I've been in Trumbull, and that's 8 years, about 3% on average, sometimes more than 5%. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. But everybody here understands compound interest. What that 3% per year means is in the 8 years I've been in Trumbull, the police budget has gone up more than 21%. We've also added a new pension obligation this year on another budget. But most importantly, Trumbull has been and remains a safe town with about the same number of officers in town, give or take about 3 or 4 depending on the moment. And that's consistent over the past decade. As a taxpayer, I am asking you to take a hard look at the police budget proposal and understand fully what is necessary and what's maybe just nice to have, and and to ask Chief Lombardo the hard questions without fear of political reprisal. Because Trumbull is a safe town, because our residents own their homes, right? Because they're retired, because we have jobs, not because we have a large militarized police force. We honor and respect the police, but that should not be a green light to spend without check. I want to thank you again for all your service. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Michael. Next, we have Alana Stein.
Hi.
Hi, Alana.
Sorry, my kids are around. They may disrupt us, but hopefully not for 3 minutes.
That's okay. And just for the record, if you would state your address.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
Not a problem.
Okay. I'm 32 Finchwood Drive. My name's Alana Stein and my children are in 6th, 4th, and 2nd grade. I'm asking that you vote to fully fund the proposed education budget. We desperately need to maintain our already large class sizes and keep our math, reading, and special education support specialists in order to meet the needs of our students. I am additionally asking that you provide funding so that the town's gifted program can be reinstated. My 6th grader and 4th grader were both identified as academically gifted by the town. My 6th grader, although minimal, was able to benefit from the town's gifted program in elementary school. Although limited, it stretched his mind, increased his confidence, and opened opportunities to new friendships with others who sometimes had a different way of thinking like him. My 4th grader doesn't have the same opportunity this year, now that the TAG program has been eliminated due to the budget not being fully funded last year. The town is failing to meet not only the academic, but also the social and emotional needs of these students, which are often unique needs to a gifted child. At the March 7th meeting earlier this month, it was stated that students are being differentiated in the classroom. I want to make sure that the Board of Finance and other town entities understand that although this may be happening in some cases, it's definitely not happening across the board. For the most part, this has not been our experience. And in speaking with other families, many others feel the same. This is in no way a reflection of our teachers and specialists. Our teachers are wonderful, but it doesn't seem that they're given the training or resources to actually put this theoretical practice into place across the board. With 24 or more kids in a class and 1 math specialist, they simply don't have the capacity to teach to the gifted children. We should be talking about funding additional money to add specialists and reduce class sizes, not reducing the budget to result in taking specialists away and increasing class size. We should be talking about funding and reinstating our town's gifted program. We should be talking about providing the resources to create standardization to teach to our gifted students. I beg you to please approve the education budget plus more. We moved to this town 3.5 years ago for the great reputation that the schools have, but fear that the academic, emotional, and social needs of our children are not continuing to be met. Please continue to attract and keep our families here in Trumbull and keep home values up by addressing the needs of our bright children. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Alana. Again, it was nice meeting. I think we met at Booth Hill.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, next on the list is Jonathan Disney. And then I would ask if you're waiting to participate and you wish to speak that you raise your hand. That will help us in the queue as well. Okay. Hi, Jonathan, how are you?
Good. Sorry, I want to make sure panelists, you have a few minute pause while you connect the other way.
That's okay.
Jonathan Disney, 43 Lafayette Drive. I have an 8th grader and a sophomore. I'll keep this brief tonight because I plan to attend in person on Saturday the 23rd to share more thoughts. But I want to thank Dr. Semmel, the Board of Ed, Dr. Semmel's team, providing a very thoughtful and considerate 5.34% budget increase for next year. As you look at neighboring towns, that's actually a very conservative number. And I think that reflects the investment that we've put in the schools for the past few years. I also want to thank First Selectman Tesoro for supporting a 4% increase, which is the largest increase we've had in recent history, as far back as the records are shared within there. I think there's a lot of thought and effort that goes into that number as well. So now it's time that I ask the Board of Finance and the Town Council Budget Committee to fully fund that 4%. We're aware these are very difficult times from a financial perspective. There are many inflationary factors that drive and dominate the budget increase. But to fully support the 4% budget, if that is the best we can do, that is the best we can do. I've been to many meetings in person. I'm here tonight. I think the debate for line items to some degree is healthy, but that shouldn't take away from the needs of the students and the staff that support our families. I'd urge you, rather than to continue some of these internal discussions, there are far better times we can spend trying to get support for Trumbull and even neighboring towns at the state level. We're being pressured by excessive cost reimbursements that are a severe limiting factor in our budget today and in the future. So I thank everyone for their time tonight. I will be there on the 23rd to kind of reinforce this. And thank you again for all that you do.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate your time. I see there's a few other attendees on our list. I see Ann Sather, who's actually on the Town Council Finance Committee. I see Katrina Gehrman, and I see Michaela Durand and Sue Brown also on the list. I don't see any other hand raised. Are there any other callers or participants that would like to make public comment in regards to the 2024-25 fiscal budget? Bill, do you see anything I'm missing?
Nope, you're right on.
Okay. We'll wait one more minute just in case anybody's trying to get into queue. Again, I want to say thank you to all those who take the time to speak. I do want to recognize that we've received a handful of emails as well. I'm hoping to finish responding to those this evening as well, and encourage all of our board members to reach out if you've received them also. I will close the public hearing on the budget at 7:15 p.m. and we'll move on to call our regular Board of Finance meeting to order at 7:15 p.m. Phyllis, will you call the roll?
Can you hear me?
I can.
You can?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Lanny McHugh?
I'm here.
Okay. David Galla?
Here.
Paul Timpanelli?
Here.
Rosemary Seaman?
Here.
Marty Isaac?
Here.
Scott Zemov? Scott?
I'm here.
Oh.
I'm here. Sorry, I couldn't get off mute.
Mark Mascola?
Here.
Vinnie DiGennaro?
Here.
Christine Alaris?
Present.
Okay.
All right. A couple of reminders as we're on Zoom this evening. If you would remember to use the raise your hand feature and wait to be recognized to speak, and also to announce your name each and every time you speak, so that Attorney Shopik doesn't give me the eyes from his box. Okay. We have a short agenda this evening. I'm going to dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance that we just did during our public hearing. And we'll move on to if there's any public comment on the agenda packet for our regular meeting. I don't see any hands. Also, members of the Town Council Finance Committee are more than welcome to stay and listen to the meeting, but they are not required to participate in this meeting. So if you jump off the screen, there's no penalty for that. All right. Moving on from public comment, we have the Town Treasurer's Report, and Attorney Musto is with us this evening.
Hey, good evening, folks.
Good evening. You want to walk us through the highlights today?
Sure.
the highlights. I hope you all have it with you. It's normal report. Obviously, the interest is still doing pretty well. And things are going good on that front. The Infinex, I just did want to point something out because it's a little misleading and I didn't catch until after I sent the report, but it's going to come up more and more. The Infinex numbers for the interest income are based on the interest as Infinex reports it from the bonds. And that's just the interest component. We buy those bonds at a discount. So the bonds are all paying somewhere around 4.5% to 5% on 250,000, which is standard these days for things. The interest rates are up, as we all know. So the $2,600 in interest is actually, again, just the interest. There was another 15,000 or so or actually more than that, of gain, I should say, because when the bond matures, it pays off at the full rate and we buy them at a discount. So I have them laddered so that every month a new bond is coming due and we're buying another one and then it comes due, et cetera, well into 2025, about a year in advance. So every month through 2025, March of 2025, currently, we're going to be getting, somewhere around 4.5% to 5% interest on $250,000 as they come due. And I said bonds, I meant CDs. So other than that, everything else is as it stands. You might notice that some of the interest, even though the rates are the same or even a little higher, a little less than last month, and that just has to do with it's February. It's a short month. January was 31 days, February is 29. So there's a 6% or so, 7% difference there. Other than that, I don't think there's anything new here, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Anthony? I don't see any questions. That was very well explained. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you
Oh,
guys enjoy.
I have
Yes.
something.
What is it, Madam Chair?
Next Tuesday, you're scheduled to come see us at 4 p.m. I've looked at your budget. The only thing in your budget line item is the salary for the town treasurer. And I see they removed my request to charge you rent for your closet space in town hall. Other than that, was there anything that you would need to tell us about that budget?
Just the raise that Vicky promised me.
I don't think Vicky promised you a raise.
Oh, okay. Well, then nothing. No, we're fine. Thank you.
All right. Unless you hear or somebody says something, I don't think we need you at 4 o'clock on Tuesday then.
I appreciate the dispensation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, we'll see you later. Oh, wait, hold on. Mr. Timpanelli?
Yes, Anthony, I have a desire not to let you off too easy. So I will ask a question. Can you define for us your definition of the difference between pretty well and very well? You opened up your comments by saying it looks pretty well.
I probably should have said pretty good, but I'm gonna say that I'll go with very good, considering that it's 8 months in and we're far in excess of the budgeted amount.
I think that's a better conclusion.
Yeah, the M&T still pays us relatively little, as you can see, but they are a bank and we're off getting, that's what we do with them. Newtown really is mostly just a savings investment more account. But everything else is about the same. I mean, the interest rates are up. We're the beneficiaries of that on this end. And I think we've done a good job of not having to borrow too much to prevent ourselves from being paying that interest out. So
Looks good.
All in all, good.
Looks good. Very good.
I'll just leave it at good.
Okay.
No modifiers.
Yeah, always reserve adjectives for later.
Yes.
All right.
Horrible things.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy.
All right, moving on to the next item on our agenda. There is a Board of Finance land acquisition bond resolution. The resolution, which is the subject of this meeting, is available to the public on the town's website. Is there a motion and a second to read the title of the bond resolution in its entirety and to waive the reading of the remainder of the resolution incorporating its full text into the minutes of this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Paul.
Dave Gallo.
I'll second it.
I'm going to give that to Scott, Dave. All right. So Paul made the
It
motion.
doesn't matter to
Scott-
me.
May I take that by unanimous consent? Okay, good. Mr. Timpanelli, would you read the resolution, please?
Resolution 03-24-01, resolution appropriating $10 million for the purchase or acquisition of land or easements, development rights, and other interests in land for recreational, open space, conservation, educational, and municipal purposes, and authorizing the issuance of $10 million bonds of the town of Trumbull to meet said appropriation and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. I move its adoption.
Thank you. And a second? Dave?
All right, I'll second this one.
Okay, Paul.
Dave
Thank you,
Gallo.
Paul. Thank you, David Gallo. Discussion on this. Attorney Shopik, do you have comment on this?
Nothing to say. No, it was, let me, this is there is no immediate project or purchase that we are contemplating with regard to this. However, we have over the years from time to time supplemented the land acquisition account, which this essentially is, so that if properties become available that we feel is prudent to purchase, that at least we know that there is money at hand. It still would have to go, the purchase would still have to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for what we call an 824 approval, to which we've done in every other instance, and would have to go to the town council to approve the purchase, to approve the price, to approve the contract and go forward. So this is really just to supplement the account. I believe is Maria's here someplace. Is she? Maria, are you here?
She's here.
Maria, yes. My understanding, you sent me a printout that showed me a different number than what I've been utilizing. My understanding, Maria, is that we have presently a balance of about $1.2 million in land acquisition. Is that correct?
In outstanding authorizations, we have 4.6 million. I'm not sure the 1.1 million you're referring to actual cash. I can look at it.
The actual cash. I think well, let me ask you this: is that 4.6 committed, or is that because we've been getting and I saw that 4.6 or close to 4.7 on the spreadsheet that you provided to me this afternoon, but as we've been going along and in our conversations or questioning as to what is available, what has been authorized, and therefore what is available, that it's been at 1.2 million. So
I'll research that, but according to the official statement, we have authorizations. We authorized a total of 40 million so far.
Mm-hmm.
And we bonded 35,302,000, leaving at 4.7 million. They're looking at authorizations versus what we borrow. There could be some small items that we haven't bonded yet. Does that make sense?
So in other words, projects that may be out with notes and temporary.
Correct.
Or that we may have paid from our general fund until the borrowed money becomes available. Correct. All right. So based on that, I still, from what I understand, there's $1.2 million that we're talking about. I see Keisha Palmer, our bond counsel, is here. If you want to criticize me, you're welcome to.
I would never do that. Good evening, everyone.
Okay. Nice to see you, Keisha. In any event, there is no there is no purchase that we have specifically targeted for this, but we would like to and think it would be prudent from the town's point of view to have the flexibility of the funds appropriated but not used for possible future purchases. Obviously, if we don't come up with anything, then we're not going to use any of the money. We're not going to borrow any of the money, and it's going to remain there for the town's benefit going forward.
Marty, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple questions. So, first of all, just so I'm clear, this is purely what you're looking for is an authorization. This doesn't have, no cash is moving, nothing is happening. You're looking for an authorization? Is that
correct? Yes.
Okay. What I guess I don't understand, and maybe I don't recall the history. I don't understand why we could, anytime something becomes urgent or important, a meeting could be called and we could deal with a specific situation. Do I understand that if I authorized it now, action would be taken that would bypass the Board of Finance going forward? Like, Board of Finance would be out of the loop with anything going forward. Is that correct? Once we're authorizing now, if people, it would be a town council or another committee's decision whether we use the money. Is that right?
Yes. It would go first to planning and zoning for an 824 approval, which is basically a meeting in which they would approve the site selection, approve the purchase. We use this process for all these construction projects. Going forward, we have several construction projects that are now in place. Yes, the answer to your question is yes, Mike.
So I guess what I don't understand is, like, when we do, and maybe I've done this before, I voted for it and it doesn't come to mind. Last time, as I recall, I voted, I understood where the money could be used. If there was a specific issue and we needed to call a meeting, like, why wouldn't we just call an emergency meeting? I don't understand the value of approving this without a project on the table. Can somebody sell me on why this is important?
Marty, we actually did this the last time and we did exactly the same amount. I believe they originally asked to put $12 million in the land acquisition account when they brought the commission, the land acquisition, whatever that board, whatever their entity is. We initially funded them with 12 million. They requested 12 million and we cut it to 10 million.
Which was, can I interrupt for a moment?
Yes.
That was for a specific.
No,
Correct?
it was purely
what was
to
it
that.
ultimately used for?
I believe that that was Hardy Lane and perhaps one of the other, there was the Hardy Lane purchase was done.
Hardy Lane was the biggest portion of that, yes.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe I have my timing mixed up. I mean, I was in favor of the town doing that, and my memory serves was I thought I was aware of how that money would be used at the time I voted to authorize it. So I could be wrong on that, but I guess I'm just having a challenge authorizing something that now I'd be out of the loop in the future. And I don't understand that if a situation came before us, we could call a meeting within a week and vote for it. So I may not be understanding it entirely unless I realize what's being left on the table by voting against. My inclination is not to do this.
I believe that my understanding is that if there were something that they needed to negotiate, by the time they would call the meeting, get us together, then move on to the town council, that ties the land acquisition hand. So there is nothing pending at this time. So we fund that bond, or we authorize that bond in the event that something were to come before them.
Just to finish that thought, it sounds like what I heard Attorney Shopik say a moment ago is before anything could be, we're really saving is our step. The town council is going to have their step regardless. So whether they're authorizing now and then approving later, all that's happening now is we are out of the approval process. So I guess, sorry to be, I'm not quite understanding, maybe we're saving a week, but what I also am having is now I'm taking myself out of the approval process of any potential acquisition. I'll stop. I'm confused by it, so I'm not sure I understand why I'd want to do that. But I want to hear other folks' questions, and maybe that'll help me.
Attorney Shopik, do you want to answer to that, or can I move on to another question?
Just very quickly, from the point of view of negotiating position. That if I know that the money is there when we're trying to negotiate a purchase, I think we're in a better position than if I basically say I have to go get a mortgage. So that's one point. The other thing is that in terms of timing, if a meeting of the Board of Finance would require a 48-hour notice, meeting of the town council requires 5 to 10 days notice in the newspaper. So the process is not such that we can just make everything happen in in less than a week.
I'm just going to respond because I maybe I misunderstood what you said earlier. I thought what I heard earlier is if you were going to make a transaction, it would still have to go through the town council.
Yes, it does.
Right. So the town council could authorize the money and approve the purchase in one. Right. If there was a rush for a situation, and again, I don't want to harp on this, but we could be assembled in 48 hours and approve money and still be involved in the process of what is being brought before us. Or I can take myself out of the loop, authorize the money now, and now town council and zoning boards are making a decision whether we're transacting or not. So I made my point. I'm not sure I understand. I think what you're saying is we potentially are impacting a negotiation because if you have a certain amount of money in there, I guess I hear what you're saying, although potentially you'd come before us by 2 minutes and by 2 days and we could still authorize that. But I'll stop.
I didn't do that.
I cut myself up, Lainey. I cut myself up.
Okay, I'm like, I just want it to be known, I did not mute you before you started talking. Scott, I saw Paul had his hand up also. Okay. Scott, go ahead. Eddie,
all right, thank you, Lainey. I do want to say I agree with Marty. I wasn't on the board when you guys did the last one, but I didn't like how previously the items have gone down. Especially Attorney Shopik just said that it takes 5 to 10 days to get the town council. We could do that simultaneously, get the Board of Finance up and running as well, because it's 48 hours, especially with the ability to do a meeting over Zoom like we are tonight. I don't see the value gain if we're going into negotiations and you still need 2 boards to approve it or a third. It's roughly the same thing. I'd like, my stance is to not take the Board of Finance out of the mix for this.
Lainey, you're on mute.
Sorry, the dog had been barking. Thanks, Scott. Mr. Timpanelli?
Yes, thank you, Lainey. I thought this was pretty cut and dry until Marty and Scott have spoken. I too now have similar, I'm not going to call them reservations, but similar uncertainty about how this process moves forward. But to try and make it more understandable, does this request come from an action by the Land Acquisition Committee? Are they requesting this $10 million authorization at this time?
No. So
they have not played a role in this at this point.
There's no property on the that's being purchased at this point. This comes from the administration.
Okay, so the last time we approved the $10 million authorization, which came to us as 12, again, I can't recall, my memory doesn't serve me well here. Was the acquisition of the Hardy Lane property on the table at that time?
I believe it was. I can't say for certain, but I took a look at some minutes before. It looked like that.
So at that point, you think we had a designated use of at least a good portion of the money. At this point, we do not.
We don't have a use, no.
Okay, thank you.
But again, it is. Let me say this: there are a number of potential development projects that we may want to be in a position to be able to compete for purchase of land, and in that case, we might need to move more quickly than we did in the Hardy Lane situation. Hardy Lane situation, they came to us very early. They wanted to sell to us, and we were able to negotiate a price.
Mr. Gala.
Thank you. So I think Attorney Shopik, you kind of answered the question I was about to ask. And I understand your comment about not going and asking for a mortgage. My question is, did the Hardy Lane transaction, was anything held up because of the three-step process that could have been expedited if it were a two-step process in the past?
Well, held up, I don't think it did not jeopardize the Hardy Lane purchase, no.
Okay, have there been other transactions that have happened that having the funds available has expedited the process or allowed the town to do things they otherwise would not have been able to do if it had been a three-step process?
Can't say, David, that there have. I think the issue is that there are a number of land use projects that are raising are coming to the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Inland Wetlands Commission, the WPCA, which, from the point of view of the town, may not be in the best interest of the town. And so we are looking to have some greater flexibility than we might have had in the past.
Are there any other questions for Attorney Shopik on this? Scott?
I don't have a question, just making a point. Just my last point. I think we all know where I stand on bonding and more bonding for the town. I'm against it as a whole anyways, but leaving an open-ended one out there just without any details is a bit worse to me. Sorry, I will let it go though. Thank you.
Okay. Attorney Shopik, do you have any other comments you'd like to make about this?
I don't. I don't know if anybody else does, but
I would like to ask that we take a 5-minute recess.
Okay, we can do that, Bill. I would ask that you all come back in 5 minutes. Okay.
Last piece here. Shit.
Okay. Everybody coming back?
We're here.
All right. So we'll come back from recess at 7:46. We're discussing a bond authorization in the amount of $10 million for the land acquisition commission, committee, whatever they actually are, board.
Just if I could, Madam Chair, just,
Yeah.
it is not an allocation for the land acquisition committee. It is an allocation for the town.
The town.
Land acquisition is advisory board.
Thank you.
They would not be spending the money.
Okay. And it is only an authorization. There is no money being spent with the current bond. I do have a comment, and perhaps somebody would clarify this for me. When we're talking about whether or not it comes back to the Board of Finance, if something were to happen, our job is to figure out how to pay for what the town decides they need to do. The bond authorization is allowing them to do that. The town council would be the body that makes the purchase or the recommendation or approval to do so based on for the town. So I don't see why we would do something different than we did prior with our prior bond authorization for land acquisition, why we would not support this. If somebody wanted to speak to that. Mr. Timpanelli?
Just a comment, if I could. I'll vote for it. I think the process needs to be improved, reformed, changed. I agree with Marty. I think the Board of Finance needs a more formidable role, a more significant role in how this sort of thing moves forward. So in the future, I'd like to see a recommendation of how we might improve that process.
Mr. Timpanelli, how did it work in your tenure? Like during your tenure as first selectman back then, how did we approach things like this?
We clearly did not have a land acquisition committee. I think it was just the authority of the first selectman that made it happen. No, I'm just kidding. Went to the board, every bond authorization went to the Board of Finance and went to the town council for approval in that order. Just very simply.
Okay. Scott?
I think the role of the Board of Finance is to make sure we're doing what's financially sound for the town, not just to provide financing for something the town wants. I know it's a minor distinction, but there is a distinction there. And for that, it doesn't really change my vote. I was not on the board the last time it was, but I'd have the same opposition then. So that's where I stand.
Any other comments? Mr. Isaac?
If there was a commitment before this money was spent that it would come before the Board of Finance, if there was a commitment before the money was spent, I would do that. It sounds like you can't make that commitment, which is making it troubling for me because I don't know how to spend this without that. But if there was a way that you were able to make that commitment this evening, that would influence me.
I could commit, this is Dan Shope again, I could commit that we'll advise you and let you know, but I can't commit that we'll give you a vote on something that is not part of the process.
Understood. Okay. I regret that I don't know what, okay, I understand.
But on the other hand, Dan, I'm sorry, my hand is raised. On the other hand, Dan, can you commit that at some point in the not too distant future, we will have a recommendation from you and or Vicky that would reform the process?
I certainly, yes, we can try to reform the process. There, certain parts of this process are regulated by statute and by
Clearly, we don't ask you to override a statute.
Pardon?
Clearly, we will not ask you to override a statute.
And I can't override the charter. So yes, I'd be happy to look into some way that we could modify the procedure. The first selectman, who is my boss, has her hand up. So,
Vicky.
Yeah. So just Paul, I just echo what Dan said. And this process is governed, really governed, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not gonna talk about state statute, but it is governed by the charter. So in order to change the charter, you know what that means, right? We have to have a vote by the town council to open our charter and revise our processes. So we'll have to check to see, but we are following what we have always followed here is the process for a bond authorization, that it has to go to the Board of Finance and then to the town council. So, and that is, I believe, Dan, right in our charter.
Yes.
Understood.
That's, now I passed the bar exam, I can now be a lawyer. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay. Currently, there is a resolution appropriating $10 million for the acquisition of real property for open space, recreation, and other town purposes, and authorizing the issue of $10 million bonds of the town to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. Can I have Phyllis take a roll call vote?
Muted, Phyllis.
Trying, okay. Laney McHugh,
Yes.
Scott Seymour,
No.
Marty Isaac,
No.
Paul Timpanelli,
Yes.
Rosemary Seaman,
No.
David Gallo.
Yes.
The motion fails 3-3. Moving on in our agenda. Discussion items. I'd like to take these a little bit out of order. I'd like to do the year-to-date budget expenditures and revenues, and then the fund balance just really quickly. Go through that, if Maria could hit the highlights of that. And then we will move to executive session for our other discussion item, if that's okay. Anybody got a problem with that? All right. Maria, you want to walk us through the year to date?
Sorry, didn't realize I was off. Basically, your salary should be about 71% spent. There are a couple, like last month, that are over budget because they still have vacancies or they need, they have overtime that was incurred because they needed extra time, and that we will be doing transfers or supplemental. I know there's always discussion about police department. If you look at page 6, they're about 87% spent on the overtime, but there's approximately 9% available in the full-time salaries because they have vacancies. One account that is really going over is the building maintenance account. And Dimitri will be coming to one of the meetings coming up to discuss the reason for the overage. It will give us a detailed analysis of that account. So if you look at page 10 of 16, there's about 52,000 over budget, but there are encumbrances of 104. And the reason we're not liquidating those right now is because there are blanket POs for anything that can happen from now until the end of June. So it's possible that he may not need that 52,000, but we will be coming to the board at some point. But he may have enough in the salary account to transfer from, because as you can see, there's only 65% spent in that account in the full-time salaries. Nothing else large that needs to be discussed at this time, other than the OSHA that, you know, we started to make some adjustments, which is recorded on page 5. Under town hall, we have started to make some repairs. And under extraordinary items, account 578805, we have about well, we'll be $6,500 over budget because we have some encumbrances, some purchase orders already set up to do some of the repairs. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Maria on the year to date? Okay. Anything on the revenues that you want us to know, Maria?
No, it looked pretty good. The interest income, obviously, it's gonna go annualize over probably 3 million. If you look at page 1 of 3. EMS salaries, not salaries, revenue will probably be annualized about 2.2 million, which is higher than budget, which is what they expected. Building maintenance projecting annualize it to $1 million. Nothing else here unless you have questions.
Any questions for Maria on revenues? If there are no questions on the revenues, we'll look at the fund balance report.
Fund balance is projected to be $32 million at the end of June 2024, which is a 16% of the fiscal year 24 expenditures. You guys have approved 806,000 in supplementals. And the fund balance will be 32 million, 16.45% increase or of expenditures.
Any questions for Maria on the fund balance? Okay, now for the fun stuff. I need a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussion of the OSHA site visit. And in that executive session will be Tom McCarthy, our Director of Human Resources, Maria Pires, our Finance Director, Vicky Tesoro, the First Selectman, Cindy Katsky, and Kathy McGannon, our Chief Administrative Officers, the members and alternates of the Board of Finance, and the Town Attorney, Dan Shopik.
So moved.
Thank you, Scott. And a second?
Second, Dave
Thanks,
Gallo.
Dave. We will, can I take that by unanimous consent? Okay, so here's how it works. At 8 o'clock, we are heading into executive session. You need to leave this Zoom meeting and open the link that Bill Chin has sent to you. Go into the new meeting and do that. Sort of like using flu powder to get to Diagon Alley. Okay. All right. See if this works. See y'all in a minute.
Rosemary, it's Bill. There should be an email in your inbox at like 7:05 or so.
Okay, I thought
Uh,
I, but maybe I didn't. All right, let me go out and come back. Still not it, Bill?
No, that's the wrong link. The executive session link is from me.
Yeah, that's what I think I'm on. I don't have.
I think I made it to the right place.
Nice to see you all again.
All right. So we're back. Phyllis? Can you hear me, Phyllis?
Yes, I can.
We voted to come out of executive session at 8:33. Paul made the motion and Dave seconded.
Thank you.
And I assumed by unanimous consent, we'd all come back.
That was good.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. Last on our agenda this evening, if you would look at the minutes of February 8th, I'll take a motion to accept those minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Paul. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Scott. Any corrections or anything that anybody sees? Okay. If there's no corrections, may I accept these minutes by unanimous consent?
Yep.
Yep. Mr. Attorney Shopik, you have your hand raised?
Not with regard to this, but I wanted to interject one thing before we go on.
Okay. So we're gonna accept the minutes by unanimous consent. Rosemary?
Absent. Yeah, I was absent.
You're listed as absent.
Okay.
Okay. Attorney Shopik?
Yeah, just going back to the motion to go into executive session, I'm not sure it was clear that that was to discuss pending claims. And that should be added to the motion.
Okay. There was a discussion of the OSHA site visit and pending claims.
Correct.
Okay. Phyllis, did you get that correction?
I did. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no other issues, nobody has anything else, we will take a motion to adjourn and we will come back at 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday here on Zoom for our next round of meetings with our department people.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Scott. Thank you, Paul. Unanimous consent. Nobody wants to stay here tonight.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.